Hi, fifth graders. I'm hoping that you're getting used to diagramming sentences by now. I was going to go ahead and show you how to do compound sentences because that's what you're going to be diagramming this week. Okay, so we're going to work with compound subjects, compound predicates, compound direct objects, compound indirect objects. Compound just means there's more than one of them. Okay, and basically for the diagram, instead of just having one line, it's going to split into two lines is how you're going to separate them. So I will show you how to do that. So first of all, we're on English, in the English textbook on page 494. And this is talking about compound subjects and compound predicates. Okay, and if you remember, the subject is what the sentence is about, and the predicate is what the subject is doing. Okay, so if we're looking at the example, Todd and Janet went to camp in July. Todd and Janet are both the subject. There's two subjects in this case. Okay, so instead of just making my straight line, since I know that my subject has more than one, I'm going to make a line up here and a line down here, and then I connect them together. And then the rest of it is all just going to be one straight line like you're used to doing. Okay? The rest of it's pretty much the same. You still have your line down the middle to separate your subject from your predicate. Now, we said the subject is Todd and Janet. And you'll notice in your book, there's a dotted line right here. That is where your conjunction goes. So Todd and Janet, and is what's combining them. So that goes on your dotted line. And it doesn't matter which side it goes on. Okay? And notice in your Google Slides, if you choose to do the Google Slide one instead of the piece of paper, I couldn't make it go up and down like this so you could type on it. So what I did is I just made like a little line in the middle, like that. So instead of doing the dotted line, just write your and right there. Okay? So if you're writing it out, do the dotted line and write and up and down. But if you're doing it on the Google slide, just put it on this little line that I put right there. That's the easiest way I could think of doing that. Okay, so now we have Todd and Janet. And remember, each word is going to get a different spot when you're diagramming sentences. There should never be two words in one spot. Okay, so over here, notice I didn't put Todd and Janet on the same line. Each word gets its own line. So keep that in mind. You're not going to have more than one word sharing the same spot in your diagram. The whole purpose of a diagram is to break apart the sentence into individual words and see how they all work together. Okay? So we have Todd and Janet. The rest of the sentence is went to camp in July. So your predicate is went. Okay? So if that's really the simplest part of the sentence. Todd and Janet went. That's your predicate. To camp and in July are both prepositional phrases. Okay, for prepositional phrases, when you're writing out the diagram, you do like a little slanty line like this, a little slanty line like this, and your preposition goes on the slanty line, and then your object of the preposition goes on the straight line. So to camp would be there, and in July would be there. So that's what it would look like. But on the Google slide, I couldn't do the slanty line again, or I could do a slanty line, but you couldn't type on it. So what I did in the Google slide, it kind of looks like this, and then it looks like this. Okay, so it looks a little different from how you would write it out. But that way you could just type it in there. And I provided all the lines for you. All you have to do is plug in the words where they go. You just have to put the words from the sentence in the right spot. And most of you have figured it out by now, but all you have to do that is click the little box with the T in it, and that will create a text box. And then once you have that, you just click where you're going to put it, type the word. Click the text box again, put it where you want it, type the word. So it's pretty simple to do. It's not like you're typing a whole lot. You're just typing a few words. Okay, you just have to create a new text box each time for them to go in the correct spot. Okay, so this is our example with a compound subject. Two subjects, you split them apart like this. Okay, now if there's a compound predicate, it's pretty much the same thing. You just put it on the other side. Okay, so for this one, the performers sang and danced. Performers is your subject. What they're doing is singing and dancing. So you have two predicates. So in this case, I have a straight line for my subject. I still have my vertical line to separate them. Then I'm going to split two lines for my two predicates. Okay, and I didn't make it very straight, but you would still have the dotted line there if you're writing it, and it's separated by and again. But like I said in the Google slide, I just put a straight line there so you could type the word and. Okay, so the subject, performers, goes on the left. We have a the in front of it. The is describing the performers, so it goes below performers. And then my two predicates are sang and danced. So sang goes on one line, danced goes on the other. Okay, so if we had any modifiers for the predicates over here, they would go below them, but this sentence is pretty simple. You don't have any modifiers for them, it's just sang and danced. Okay, so that's what it would look like. All right, and then one more example is when the direct object is compound. Well, actually not the direct object, but the direct object in the next sentence is the object of both verbs. So that's where it gets a little complicated. So there's two verbs or two predicates in this sentence, and the direct object is the object of both of them. So it's going to open the line and then close it again. So I'll show you how that looks. So the sentence is Don mowed and raked the lawn. So you only have one subject, that's Don. Don's doing all the action. He goes right there. You still have your vertical line to separate the subject and predicate. There's two things he's doing. He's mowing and raking. So we got to split it. Okay, and is our conjunction. It's splitting them up. And he mowed and he raked. Now that's not the end of our sentence. He mowed and raked the lawn, and that's our direct object. Okay, mowed and raked both apply to the lawn. So in that case, we got to bring them both together again. Okay, and then the rest of the line, I'm kind of running out of space. You still have that straight line towards the end to separate your direct object. Lawn is your object. That's what he's doing that to. And the is describing the lawn. So I have to put it underneath lawn. Okay? So that's how that would look. We just have to open it up and then close it again since we had a direct object. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. You only have to do a few of these. I think I did 1, 2, and 3, I believe, on your assignment. So it's always a good idea to get some extra practice in. So if you want to do all of exercise 1 on your own, you are more than welcome to. It's a good way to understand how the sentence is related to each other. Okay, the next page is compound direct objects and indirect objects. Okay, so remember the direct object is what the predicate is applying to, like he mowed the lawn. That's the direct object. An indirect object is like if you're giving something to someone. The thing you're giving is the direct object. Who you're giving it to is the indirect object. Okay? So in this sentence on page 496, it says the clowns wore baggy clothes and shiny shoes. Okay, so first of all, I have to pick out my subject and predicate. So it's going to be straight for that and a vertical line for that, just like we were doing before. Clowns is my subject. So it goes on the left. And I have a modifier, the clowns. What did the clowns do? The clowns wore. That's my predicate. That's what they did. The clowns wore. And what they wore is my direct object. So I have to put a line up here to separate my direct object. And there's 2 of them. There's 2 things they wore, so I have to split it. And is my conjunction. Putting that between them. So they wore baggy clothes and shiny shoes. So they wore clothes, that's one object, and they wore shoes. My last two words are adjectives. They're describing the clothes, describing the shoes. So what kind of clothes? Baggy clothes, that goes underneath. Any describing words are going underneath. And shiny shoes, shiny goes below shoes. Okay? So it's the same kind of thing. You just split apart your two direct objects. That's the only difference. And then put your and between them alongside. Okay, and then the last example on this page is if you have two indirect objects. And if you remember when we talked about indirect objects, they go below the predicate. So you're going to have a line below, and then that's going to have to split into two lines because you're going to have a compound indirect object. Okay, so let me give you an example here. We're at the bottom of page 496. The sentence is, we sent Helen and Marie invitations to the Halloween party. Okay, who is doing the action? We are. So that's your subject. Okay, I'm going to split it from my predicate. What did we do? We sent. Okay, who I sent them to is my indirect object. So that's going below my predicate. There's two people we sent them to. That means I have to split it. Okay, and they're combined by and. The two people I sent them to are Helen and Marie. So Helen goes up here. Marie goes down here. Those are my indirect objects. And then what it is I sent them is my direct object. So I have to put my line up here, separate my direct object. What did we send? Invitations. And then the last part is to the Halloween party. That is a prepositional phrase. So I'm going to put my slanty line. To is the preposition. The object is party. The object of your preposition is going to be a noun. Okay? To the party. Everything else is describing the party. So we have a the party and we have Halloween party. Those are both describing what kind of party. Okay, so that's kind of a long sentence. But notice I have one spot for each word in my sentence. Should not have more than one word in one spot. Okay, so that is compound indirect objects. Indirect, who it's going to. All right, the next one is compound subject complements. The same kind of thing. We're just splitting apart the lines. So a subject complement is going to be towards the end of the sentence most of the time. It's what comes right after is, are, was, were, those kind of linking verbs. Okay, because like we said, those sentences don't make sense on their own. They have to have a subject complement. So on page 498, your sentence is, the best pitchers on the team are Rosalind and Lillian. Okay, so first of all, my subject and predicate. My subject is pitchers. It's always going to be a noun or pronoun. Pitchers. And then I have two words describing the pitchers. I have the pitchers and I have best pitchers. Notice we also have on the team. So on the team is a prepositional phrase. I'm running out of space. I'm going to have to create some space. So prepositional phrase, on goes here, team is the object, and the is describing team. So that's kind of crunched together, but you can see all those things are describing the pitchers. The pitchers, best pitchers, and on the team, pitchers on the team, are all describing pitchers, so they have to go below that. Now, my predicate is are. Are. Does it make sense to just say pitchers are? No, it doesn't. So I have to keep going. I'm going to add a subject complement, which is where you put a slanty line. Okay, and I have 2. So I'm going to split them apart. Okay, so the best pitchers on the team are Rosalind and Lillian. So Rosalind, Lillian, and they're separated by and. And probably 99% of the time, you're going to have and in the middle. Every now and then, you'll get an or, but most of the time, you're going to have and in the middle. Okay, so we have a different spot for each word. The best pitchers on the team are Rosalind and Lillian. Okay, separate each word out. The next example is our dog is friendly and smart. It's a little shorter sentence for us. So my subject is dog. R describes whose dog it is, so I'm going to put it underneath. Our dog is my predicate, which it's a linking verb, so I can't just leave it as is. I have to add a subject complement. Okay? Our dog is what? Friendly and smart. So I'm going to split apart those 2 things. Friendly and smart. And then and is going to split them apart. Okay? So it's the same thing we kind of did last week. It's just splitting apart 2 lines when it's compound. Okay? And then the last one on this page is the steps to the attic are steep and narrow. Okay? So the basic part of my sentence, my subject and my predicate. Subject is steps. Predicate is are. Steps are. That's my basic part of my sentence. Okay, the first part of the sentence is the steps to the attic. So we have steps. The describes the steps. To the attic, it's a prepositional phrase. So we put it like this. Preposition goes on the slanty line. To, attic is my object of the preposition, and the is describing attic. So to the attic. Are, can't just use are, so I have to add my subject complement. And we have 2 different things that they are. They are steep and narrow. So steep, narrow, with an and between them. Okay? So it's the same thing we did before, just splitting apart 2 of them for a compound. And don't forget, each word gets its own line. Never put more than 1 word on a line in a diagram. Okay, and then the last thing, I think it's the last thing. Maybe there's one more. Sorry, my arm is squeaking on the board. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. There's 2 more. So the next one is compound sentences. It's where the whole sentence is compound. So you have to split it into 2 totally separate diagrams, except they're joined by and. So this is when you have 2 totally separate sentences by themselves, and when you do the comma and. Remember when we talked about that, the compound sentences? They can be sentences all by themselves, but they're joined by a comma and. So the first one is, my skateboard is yellow and Gwen's skateboard is blue. Okay, the first sentence is independent clause. Could be a sentence by itself. My skateboard is yellow. So I'm going to do that part first. Line like this to separate my subject and predicate. My subject is skateboard. Whoops, I should have made it bigger. It's my skateboard. My skateboard is linking verb, so I need a subject complement. Yellow. Okay, so that's the first independent clause. Second independent clause, Gwen's skateboard is blue. So I'm going to make another one over here. Down below it. Okay, Gwen's skateboard. So skateboard is still my subject. Gwen's is describing who it is, so it's a modifier. Gwen's skateboard is linking verb, so we need a subject complement. Blue. And the last thing I have left to do is connect them. So instead of putting the line between, we're putting it all the way to connect the two lines all together. And then my conjunction goes on that line. So I connected them with and. Well, you can see that okay. So my skateboard is yellow and Gwen's skateboard is blue. Okay. Now, next example for compound sentences. I studied my lines for the play, but I forgot them during the rehearsal. So we have a different conjunction in this case. Your first independent clause. I studied my lines for the play. So I is my subject. Separate my subject from predicate. What did I do? Studied. This is not a linking verb. I studied makes sense all by itself. But we do have a direct object because we're saying what we studied. That means a straight line up and down. What did we study? Lines. Everything else is describing the lines. So they're my lines. And for the play is a prepositional phrase. So for, play, and the describes play. That's the first independent clause. I studied my lines for the play. Okay, the second part says, but I forgot them during rehearsal. Okay, subject, I. What did I do? Forgot. So I forgot. It's a complete sentence by itself. But in this case, we have a direct object. What did we forget? Them. Okay. Now, all we have left is a prepositional phrase. I forgot them, but I forgot them during rehearsal. During rehearsal describes when you forgot them. So this is describing forgot. Okay. So my preposition is during, and my object is rehearsal. Terrible line. Okay, so I forgot them during rehearsal. Then all we have left to do is connect them. And in this case, the conjunction we used was but. So I write that on the dotted line. Okay, I studied my lines for the play, but I forgot them during rehearsal. Okay, so hopefully that one makes sense. And then there's only one diagramming left to do for the whole school year, and that is adverb clauses. Okay. An adverb clause is something that adds onto your sentence, but it can be left off. Kind of describes when you're doing the action. Okay, so since it's describing when you do the action, it's going to go below your predicate, which is your action. Okay, so an adverb clause is going to start with a subordinate conjunction, like after, as, before, once, since, when, whenever, while, until. It's usually going to tell when you did something or how often you did something like that. Okay, so for this example, whenever I have a chance, I eat chocolate. Okay, so in this case, whenever is kind of connecting my two parts of my sentence. Okay, I have a chance is a complete sentence. I eat chocolate is a complete sentence. Whenever is connecting them two together. So it's telling you the two actions are connected together. So in this example, this is probably the most complicated part of diagramming sentences. So your first part, I have a chance. I is the subject. Have. Okay. I have what? chance. And they put the one on the bottom. You could really put it either way. Okay, and it's a chance. A is describing the chance. So I have a chance. And then I eat chocolate. Like I said, it doesn't matter which one you put where. I eat. And then what do I eat? Chocolate. Okay, whenever I have a chance I eat chocolate, all we have left to do is our adverb phrase. So I'm connecting have and eat. And you could do it this way or this way. It's just a dotted line when you're connecting things in a diagram. So this is kind of bulky. Whenever comes between them. Because that describes when. Okay? I'm going to do one more. They only gave one example on that page 502. Sorry, I don't think I told you the page. 502 is the page we're on. Oh, they do have one more example. So on page 503, there's one more example, these adverb clauses. Okay, and this one says, I always break a granola bar into pieces before I eat it. So there's a lot of modifiers in that first part. So separate my subject and predicate. I always break a granola bar into pieces. So I is my subject. Break is what I'm doing. Always describes when I'm breaking it. So it's an adverb. I'm going to put it below break. And into pieces is a prepositional phrase that's describing how I break it. Okay, so it's going to go under break. Into pieces. For prepositional phrases, you really have to think about which part of my sentence is it describing? Is it describing my subject? Is it describing my predicate? Or is it describing my direct object? It's breaking into pieces. So in this case, the prepositional phrase describes the predicate. Okay? So I always break into pieces. What? A bar. So that's my direct object. Okay? And then we have some words describing the bar. We have a bar. We have granola bar. Those both describe what kind of bar. So those are adjectives. Okay? Then, I eat it is your second part of your sentence. Those are both independent clauses. They could be sentences all by themselves. So I is your subject. Eat is your predicate. What do I eat? It. That's my direct object. I eat it. And then we just have our adverb that's going to connect the two, which is before. It's describing when we're breaking it, when we're eating it. So we break it before we eat it. So we're going to connect the two with the dotted line. Before. That's how the two sentences are connected with that adverb clause. Okay? So I always, how did they phrase it? I always break a granola bar into pieces before I eat it. Okay? And that one was a little confusing with that prepositional phrase because they put into pieces next to bar, but really it's describing how you're breaking it. It's not describing the bar. So that was a little confusing there. Okay? The main part is pick out the main pieces of your sentence and put those on the line first. And then whatever's left is probably going to be your adverb clause that's connecting. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to put the Google Slides on there that you can fill in, or you can do it on a piece of paper, whichever is easier for you. And if you have any questions, just make sure to let me know.